So I'll start with, does anyone know what sustainability actually means? And I sort of hazard to guess that even the guy in the video that's wearing the same suit as I am probably doesn't really know. But the other problem with this topic is that it's very hard to talk about it without being especially preachy. And I apologise in advance, I'm going to sound a little bit preachy, but here we go. So is that sustainability? This is climate protesters, and they're rallying against the Adani coal mine. Is that sustainability? So this is banks treating customers badly, then ending up in a royal commission. This is probably a little bit closer, probably a bit too close to home actually. We haven't seen the end of this, and it isn't very much fun when you're having a regulatory and political stoush with your biggest customers. And I missed out next door, but I understand that John Sharp has been continuing that discussion as recently as a few minutes ago. Is that sustainability? So is that remuneration, executive rem, out of kilter with social expectations? So I'll move on. The problem with this topic is there's a lot of jargon, and if you ask 100 different people what they think that sustainability means, you'll get 100 different answers. So what I just want to talk about is sustainability through the lens of Adelaide Airport. It's the way that we look at it, and I'll just go through a few case studies, that hopefully, I guess, demonstrate how and why our shareholders have been supportive of this for quite a long period of time. So we've done this for a while, and I guess like many airports and others focusing on sustainability, they start with the core there, measuring and reducing carbon emissions, looking to reduce waste, reduce water, increase percentage of recycled water. We traditionally ran it from the environment team, partly because that's where the passion had begun. Then we moved it out actually a little bit closer to our corporate affairs team. We started to broaden our language about the ESG side of things, environment, social governance, and we've been tracking it, measuring it, and trying to actually give ourselves a score on those measures, which is really hard. And when we did so using the Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark, we came out with the highest score globally on that front, which made us feel pretty good. And running it through corporate affairs, we got lots of awards, and corporate affairs are very good at getting lots of awards. What I will say though, and this is sort of why the collective airport family in Australia are actually pretty good, is that of all the airports on the planet that could knock us off top position, it was Melbourne Airport just last month. So we're trying to get them back next year. But to help round out our decision making, the final concentric circle there, more recently we've been thinking about sustainability, I guess, in terms of our ongoing business purpose and corporate sustainability, corporate longevity, and we've moved our fantastic sustainability team, and by team I mean one person, into our finance team to really help prioritise the development of sustainability business cases. Sometimes, so when you talk about sustainability and finance together, people then start to get confused. How does that work? But I will say corporate governance has come a very long way over the last few decades on this topic. And you can see the first quote up there is from one of the godfathers of modern capitalism. Social responsibility of business is to increase its profits. It sounds like a good quote, but unfortunately it does sort of entrench the misunderstanding between profit and value. So value being, future profits, discounted back into today's terms, factoring in the risk of those future profits or future cash flows. Now, if you don't have customers, you don't make a profit, as an example. I prefer the bottom quote there. I think it's a truly genius but unknown author, and I'll read it out to you. The core duty of airport managers is to create long-term value for shareholders. But to create long-term value, we must act in the interest of all of our stakeholders, our people, our customers, the community, the environment. If you're not looking after your stakeholders, you are not looking after your shareholders. The interests are aligned and there is no trade-off. What a genius. I think that just guides us all. And so it does start with our shareholders, and we are really, really lucky that we have fantastic long-term investors as our shareholders. I actually tried to include on this slide all of the shareholders of the top 10 airports, in the country, but couldn't quite find the space. So here's Adelaide. Other than Statewide, which is a South Australian superannuation fund, all the others invest in other airports across Australia. UniSuper is our largest shareholder, and actually has also been Sydney Airport's largest shareholder since Macquarie sold out, and they are incredibly supportive on sustainability. And all the other shareholders, so they're in Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, Darwin, Gold Coast and Cairns, and none of them are Gordon Gekko-inspired vulture funds. They really are, and I hate to use this overused term, they are mum and dad investors. I know that term's overused, but they are using it to fund their retirements. I mean, the fact that they're also our customers, our employees, and also in the local community is a little by the by, because they are relying on us to fund their retirements for decades into the future. So we basically have no excuse, coming from the top, but to be corporate champions on sustainability. I'll quickly go through some case studies now to demonstrate that, and at the end I'll hopefully be able to show how doing good things does also help our shareholders. I've tried to sort of cover a few different things from Jeff this morning, but just to kick through it. Solar, the classic, I mentioned in the embarrassing intro video that we did for some time have the largest solar array in South Australia and the largest of any airport in Australia. This irrigation trial is very unique. Our airport's in the driest capital city, the driest continent in the world if you exclude Antarctica, and you might have seen the news today that it's 42 degrees with catastrophic fire danger in Adelaide, so it is real. So we use recycled stored stormwater to irrigate our airfield to be able to grow the right grass that reduces the ambient air temperature. And we're actually in the process of moving from a large trial stage into something quite a bit bigger, and hopefully also involves cropping lucerne, because I think deep in our soul, all of us want to be farmers at the end of the day. Really interesting one, we'll talk about a bit more in a second. ESG loan, and look how happy they are. They're odd bedfellows, you might think. Our head of corporate finance, Josh, head of sustainability, Lee, but they should be happy. Just over a year ago, we were the first corporate of any kind across Australia to do this deal, and we've seen Gold Coast and Sydney also develop similar products as well, and Jeff spoke about theirs earlier today. But good on all of us, really. This is where we get rewarded for the strength of our risk management, our governance frameworks. We're measured each year by Sustainalytics, and if our rating improves enough through the success against carbon targets and through our integrated reporting and other initiatives, the cost of our debt decreases. Cool pavement, and some might think that that's an oxymoron, but we've been using lighter coloured fuel-resistant membrane on our airfield to absorb less heat and reduce the air temperature, and that impacts the temperature in the terminal and also impacts our airline customers' operations. So this is Jess, a pavement engineer, and she made all of that happen, and it's been an incredible success. Compostable serviceware. We're currently undertaking a doubling of our retail space in the terminal and reletting virtually all of our retailers. And as part of this process, we mandated in our leases, all food and beverage operators would have to use compostable serviceware as part of their operations. So these stores actually start to open next year. But when we first did this in the tender stage, which was a few years ago now, we thought we were pretty heroic. John Pearce, our head of retail over there, took the leap of faith. And at the time, it was heroic. But now it almost seems market standard, and it's incredible how quickly customer expectations can move. So it's incumbent on us to be a bit brave and look over the horizon and be looking for the next thing. So all of this makes us feel warm and fuzzy, it does to me, and we want to go on and do a whole lot more of it, and we have done a whole lot more of it, and everyone here has probably been involved in their own necks of the wood. But what I want to dwell upon, what might be obvious, but it's that win-win topic. So solar's pretty easy up the top there, lower carbon, lower electricity costs. For our solar plant or solar system, which always sounds a bit awkward, we did it before utilities prices boomed, finished construction in 2016. It's virtually paid for itself. It's been an absolutely stellar investment, but also doing good things for the environment. The airfield greening and cropping, and you can sort of see the public good and shareholder benefit there. It has there's slightly more second order complex benefits, not immediately obvious, but the greening of the airfield actually can have a 4 degrees difference across the entire airfield environment on hot days, like today is in Adelaide. And air thinning becomes exponential as the air gets hotter. That increases fuel burn, reduces really practical maximum takeoff weight, and some airfields need to close. We actually had to close Parafield a little bit last year when it was 46 degrees. So reducing those temperatures, across the airfield saves our customers costs, reduces their fuel burn, and it makes us a more competitive port to operate from. And that in turn reduces on the margins customer sensitivity to our direct airport costs. Also for us, and when you do reduce air temperature consistently, it reduces the pressure within our terminal environment on our air conditioners, in turn reducing electricity costs, and there's less carbon as a result. So it's this sort of complex mix of benefits for the public and also for our shareholders. The ESG loan is pretty simple. We improve our sustainability credentials. The bank sees us as a lower risk. They reduce our interest costs. Shareholders save from that. It's sort of like you go and put a solar array on the roof of your house to save electricity, and your bank then decides to give you a reduction in your mortgage. It's sort of this beautiful double whammy. The cool pavement is similar, I guess, to the greening side of things. So it reduces electricity costs because of the reduced heating around the terminal environment. It also makes, on the margin, our port more cost effective for our customers to operate when their fuel burn's lower. The last example there that sort of just looks like it's dropped off the page a little bit is our compostable serviceware. And look, I guess fairly obviously it reduces our waste costs. So and it has done that. But I guess thankfully these goods, a couple of years ago, they're probably a little bit more expensive than your average serviceware. They're now the same price, so that's no impost on our retailers. But the benefits are sort of twofold above that. You've got the sales and brand risk mitigation, and then the ability to increase transactions and price. And I'll sort of dwell upon these things with a bit more of an example in a second. This is a bit of an example of that risk mitigation. So Tony Burke, very senior federal Labor politician, still in Parliament. He used to be the Environment Minister. This is a bit of a tweet. I'll let you have a look at it. It's pretty embarrassing. The irony of this is that we actually were running a fully compostable coffee cup terminal at the time this happened. In fact, if we weren't doing that, this whole thing probably would have got a nice head of steam. You can sort of see the date there that it was still sort of a year out from an election, so these things can sort of take hold. I think this illustrates, I guess, the benefit of being active in this space. If customers, in this case, the customer was also a politician, think that you're doing bad things, they not only won't buy from you, the public, politicians, regulators, they're going to move against you, and you just have to ask the banks about this. But on the more positive side, the flip side of that, for a long time people have been saying that they would buy green, but actually when no one was watching, that they wouldn't. That difference has converged between intentions and actual purchasing habits a lot more. And last year, Qantas Future Planet, we did some work with them, and they showed us their surveys, and 63% of people are willing to pay more for environmentally friendly service. So in this case, those that are offsetting more feel better about their purchases, even though they're paying more, and they're going to come back for more. For us, the challenge is about quantifying all of this side of things in a business case. But that's why sort of sustainability and finance, when the teams are working together so well, it helps you achieve sustainability results. I'll start to wrap up, and as you know, sustainability is a huge field. We've only really touched the tip of the iceberg on what we're doing, and you've heard a bit already today about what others are doing, but we haven't really spoken about the people and the cultural side of delivering sustainable outcomes for our shareholders and our stakeholders. And I mentioned earlier that we have a one-person team, our sustainability manager, Lee Gapp, but he really has an entire airport. He often doesn't realise that or forgets when he's lobbying for more dedicated resources. But the thing with sustainability is that the whole business and the broader airport community all need to be pulling in the right direction and exercising their discretionary effort in an area that does cut across so many different disciplines. We saw with the Tony Burke coffee cup example too, that it just takes the employee of a tenant a few steps removed, and they can undo a whole lot of good work that you might be doing. So we need the best talent in our necks of the wood to achieve what we need to do, but in turn influence our business partners. When it comes to people, we are so lucky. I mean, all of our core businesses do have that higher purpose, connecting communities. For us, there we are, connecting Adelaide to the world, and we're the gateway to beautiful South Australia too. And it feels really good to be doing that, but when you can do it in a sustainable way, and we can hopefully keep doing this for 100 years or more. And we know, we've heard a little bit about the changing demographics of the workforce. Over 80% of our workforce is now are Gen X, Y, and Z, who are demanding a sense of purpose to their work like never before. And being a sustainable, positive force in the world certainly helps with that. And who doesn't want to get up in the morning and do good things, but also make the shareholders happy? So sustainability definitely has a lot of layers to this onion, starting with the environment and resource efficiency, to ESG factors, to our stakeholders, to creating shareholder value. And I'll draw a long bow and say that sustainability, while it is for the benefit of our shareholders and stakeholders, basically captures everything that we do. I in part wanted to say that as a good excuse to play our new corporate video, which makes me feel pretty good. And I have to say, this video, I think, captures the real essence of what sustainability is. I think the good thing with closing out with a video is I get to hobble off the stage and you don't get to ask me any questions, but please do feel free to reach out and chat to me or anyone else from Adelaide Airport about all of this. I'm sure you all have some rapturous applause for me, but maybe hold off until after the video, which I think is the true hero.